Absolutely. So, what is up, everybody? We are calling all nerds, and you have answered the call, the beacon in the sky, if you will. We're your friendly neighborhood hosts that talk about everything within the entertainment zeitgeist. And we are so excited to talk about some amazing stuff tonight, starting with our Final Fantasy 16 reviews so far, as I believe Peter and I are roughly a little halfway through the game. Then we're going to be talking about just the amazing week that the theater is having right now with a lot of great movies that are out. Possibly touch on the current writer and actor guild strikes that are happening and what that could mean for the film and TV industry over the coming months. And then finally ending out with some great indie games that have been released lately. Dave the Diver, is that the name of the game?
Yep.
That I'm very excited to hear about from Peter and Tyler as well. So welcome if you are joining us. And I guess we can hit the ground running. Peter, how far are you now in Final Fantasy 16?
Oh boy, I think about halfway. Well, based on the percentage, 50%. So
50%. Okay.
That's where you at.
I'm 62% through the game, so I am a little bit farther than Peter. Got about 28 hours on the clock so far, which sounds about right. I'm probably most likely going to end the game at around 40 to 45 hours at my current pace.
You think that'll be with 100% or without 100%?
I think that'll be with 100% of what is possible to achieve within the first playthrough, because the thing is, a lot of the trophies require you to do a new game plus, like fully, like beat the game twice.
Yeah.
And the game significantly changes in New Game Plus. Like the level cap for your first playthrough is level 50. That level cap doubles in New Game Plus. The way enemies appear on the field and how combat is handled is a little different in New Game Plus too, called Final Fantasy mode, I guess is the title of the mode.
That's funny.
Yeah. But it is very much one of those games right now where I don't foresee myself wanting to replay it anytime soon. Like, I definitely probably will to 100% it at some point in the future.
But so not to 100% it, like, right away.
Right. It's not one of those that I'm just like, I'm going to immediately jump back in and replay the entire game all over again. I just... Yeah, not feeling it that much. I would say, yeah, I would say right now, if I were to rate it, I would give it a 7.5 out of 10.
Wow.
It's a good game. Like, I mean, it's a good game. I'm enjoying it, but I'm not loving it. I think I'm a little let down, honestly, by what I was hoping it would be. But it's still well made for what it is. It feels like a very uneven game.
Okay.
And I'll definitely delve into that a little more. But
yeah,
Peter, how would you grade it so far in the halfway point that you're at?
yeah, I gotta say it's probably like a 7 for me, or
Yeah.
almost like I can't give it too low of a score, because basically what it does amazing. It does better than anything I've ever seen for a Final Fantasy game for the combat.
Mm-hmm.
But the story, I guess I can't talk too much about the story yet without having completed it. But there are basically so many moments that feel stale, like when you're going through the town and sort of the world building and stuff like that. It kind of feels like one of those typical talk to someone and their mouth kind of moves robotically, and the dialogue just doesn't hold up to get you captivated about what they're talking about half the time. And this goes for like a lot of the characters in the game outside of the main ones that are core to the story. And so it really just feels like you're in a world with the main characters, and then everybody else is sort of like doesn't really seem like they exist or are real. And so, like, the overall world building, I think it was just really bad in this game.
The overall world building, that you said?
Yeah, like, it just doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like you're in a fantasy world either. Like, I was pretty disappointed when I saw the first Adamantoise. And I guess some of the style of the game, I think they talked about how they wanted to go a little bit more. I don't know what the term they used was, but it kind of feels a little bit more like grounded. Like they
Like
wanted to go with it
realistic.
realistic, grounded, and I know they kept repeating that in terms of the style, and it kind of goes to show that without like back in some of the old Final Fantasy games, you'd run into like an enemy that would be like the Adamantoise that would be towering like so tall among the landscape and just have a ridiculous amount of health and you usually can't even like beat it until like later on in the game. But the first few Adamantoises you see in this game are almost like more realistic looking characters, like almost something like that you'd see in real life, like just a large turtle basically, like only a little bit larger than a human. And
they didn't make them like outrageously ginormous.
no, and they made them look kind of like realistic looking too,
That's weird.
like just
Honestly,
real turtles.
honestly, to Peter's point, I would say the only things that really are at a level of spectacle in this game are the icons, are the summons, like the characters, the battles that you have.
For people who may not be aware, icons being EIKONS, correct? Not icon like ICON.
Correct.
What is an icon?
So an icon is another name for basically the big summons of the Final Fantasy universe. They follow in each game. All the summons are fairly the same. Like some games have more summons than others, but there are a core 8 that are in every single Final Fantasy, at least in the later Final Fantasies. Those being, and they all have their own element. Those being Phoenix, Shiva, Ifrit, Titan, Leviathan, Garuda, Odin, and Bahamut. And so those are.
Good job, Max.
You got through all of them.
Well, it's just because I've played Final Fantasy all my life. So these are like summons I've like seen in every single game. But I think more so than before, this game is very centralized on those summons. Like this is a game that is almost revolving around these icons because they are, even the logo is Ifrit versus Phoenix. Like it's like in the game there are characters called Dominants, and this isn't spoilers, but there are characters called Dominants that basically have harnessed or have been birthed and blessed with the power to transform into these icons, into these powerful creatures, and they're either completely despised by the world or seen as like the highest level of authority, depending on what kingdom you live in. And they really kind of help make or break the world of Final Fantasy 16, Valistia. And in this world, everyone is dependent upon these giant crystal landscapes called the Mother Crystals, which in every Final Fantasy game, crystals are a huge aspect of the world in it. But I would say that this is the first time that a Final Fantasy game is kind of given a more shadowy or negative aspect to crystals than ever before. This is a very harsh, dark, bleak world. And in some ways, it's like very unfun to play through because it's just like, man, like everyone sucks in this world. like outside of your friends, like everyone is so either evil, prejudiced. Like it is and I get why they did it because it is very much a game about, tearing down the world order and rebuilding a world of peace and equality. And the only way to do that is to destroy it. Like basically, like, no pun intended, like scorched earth. Like we need to just take the world down to its bare level and restart because this world is not worth saving. And
interesting background.
Yeah, like it's I actually liked it, but it's also just unlike any other Final Fantasy game. Final Fantasy, at least in my opinion, there's definitely dark moments in it, but it's balanced with like moments of levity and humor and romance and stuff like that. There's really none of that in this game. This game is very Game of Thrones. Like this is like political intrigue. You don't know who to trust. Violent. They're like people who are evil for just the sake of being evil, I guess. Like, and I think that for me, that's one of the parts that's very disappointing about the game. There are characters in this game that are just evil. Like there's no rhyme or reason for it. And I'm like, okay, well, like why? Like why is Annabella such a despicable human being? Like what is the reason? Like is she just and there is no reason. The reason is literally that just because she's a terrible human being.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's not a great character.
The game doesn't give too much background or anything. They're just it's just like,
no,
hey, this is this person and they're just evil.
Yeah, at least none that I've seen so far. And I think the excuse that's kind of given to the majority of antagonists in this game that I've at least seen so far is that they are all just kind of dependent on the easy way out of like, okay, I want to have control of this giant mother crystal, so I'm going to raid this kingdom, take it over, and then we can just enjoy the resources of the mother crystal and just live in like, the highest status that we possibly can. And that's really it. And I feel like that's very lazy character writing, in my opinion. Like I can't sympathize or even be interested in a villain that doesn't have a reason as to why they're doing something. The real villain of the game is the only one that is really interesting. I don't want to reveal who or what it is, but I'm interested in that villain because it's like, okay, but like what is he doing? Like what is he doing with all these other like characters at play? But yeah, like the game just feels very unbalanced. The combat is excellent. I think that the story for the most part is compelling. It's just it doesn't always grab me. I like the voice acting is great. And this is like one of those rare games where, they actually did the voice in English first before Japanese, which was very interesting.
Oh, that's cool. I did not know that.
Yeah, I didn't know. I realized that when I like read a review the other day that they did that. They did the dub first before they did the sub, which is very cool. But yeah, I have more to say about it, but I feel like I've been talking for a while. But like, Peter, what other thoughts do you have about it other than what I mentioned so far?
Well, I feel like the voices are definitely excellent, especially some of the people you get really close to. But again, like they really fail in terms of like animating the faces. And
outside of like big cutscenes, yeah.
I feel like Final Fantasy growing up used to be like ahead of the game in terms of like how people looked, like when they talked, and now it seems like they're behind in the game. And there are not many games out there that really get expressions correct in games, and there's still a lot of uncanny valley in most games, including like even the Starfield trailer we saw. Like it still had like typical Bethesda fashion, like soulless eye stare, and with like no head.
Seems like eyes are like one of the hardest things for game developers to do. I have no idea how hard making games are, but definitely seems like no one can really do well with eyes, and it's so weird.
Something about that just takes me out of so many important moments in these like heavy story-driven games nowadays. That like I really feel a lot more emotion when it comes to a game that's like in a pixelated style versus really just like anything that's not trying to be 3D. It just seems like there's so much uncanny valley, and so I get taken out of the game's story a lot. I am all for the combat. Like really, that's like the main ride of this game for me. Like when you get into some of the biggest fights, it really just makes me want the game to be only like a fighting game, because the mechanics of the fighting just are insanely well done, And I guess some of the story too is just, it does get a little bit, at least where I'm at right now, it's kind of confusing. It's starting to feel like in recent, Final Fantasy or Square Enix style, it's starting to turn into like one of those like Kingdom Hearts storylines where you got like
so many
showing up left and right from like 15 organizations. Not to the extent of that, literally. Like that's definitely a stretch, but it seems like it's starting to go down that route halfway through the game. So it'll be interesting to see what exactly where they go with everything.
Yeah,
it doesn't captivate me, I guess. Though.
Yeah, so I guess like as someone who is not playing the game, I think maybe some things that I'd be curious to hear, like if you guys could, let's just pick the top 2 things that you think the game does right. Max, we can start with you. What would you say are the top 2 things, in your opinion, that this game does right? Whether it's maybe something that they've done for the first time, that's cool. It doesn't have to be, but just kind of, what are like the top 2, or maybe top 3, if that helps.
No, for sure. I mean, like I said, there's a lot of things I love about the game as to why I'm still enjoying playing it. I think for me, the writing I actually find really well done. Is what.
Yep. He froze. I think his first one though was the writing, which is great. Final Fantasy has definitely been known for
Like the high points for me. The writer of this game is this. Oh, am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
Am I back now? Okay, cool. No, you're right, Tyler. I was saying the writing. Yeah, it's this game is written by the same person that did a lot of the story DLC for or story expansions, I should say, for Final Fantasy 14. I believe it's the same writer for Vagrant Story, which is an old PS1 game. It's really a lot of the same team that has done like the Ivalice country of Final Fantasy. So their stories tend to be a lot more dark, a lot more medieval, European, political intrigue kind of style. And I find that the dialogue is really well written. I really like the way that the characters speak, how they really, talk about their situation in a way that feels very human, in a way that feels very. It feels sometimes when I'm watching cutscenes like I'm watching a movie. I've never once in the game felt like I have in previous Final Fantasy games or in really any kind of JRPG. This like weird like anime translation scene, you know what I mean? Of like where like characters are talking and it just feels very like awkward and like you're like, oh, this is a very big anime moment right here where they just didn't know how to translate the Japanese to English. And I think part of that, I'm sure, is because this was first written for English. And that was to a big benefit, I think, in that regard. But I really love the way that the characters talk and how they interact with each other in the game. The second thing I really love is the active lore. There's like this really cool feature where at any point in the game, within a cutscene or whether you're on the main map moving around, you can like hold down the dash button on your controller and it'll bring up like a few circles of lore that you can read, kind of like when you pause a show in Amazon Prime and you can like see all the actors' information of the characters that are on the screen at that given moment. And so like this is a very, I mean, as much as weird as I agree with Peter where I feel like the world building isn't that great, I feel like they do a good job of explaining where you are at any given time, who you're with, what you're going up against, to a point where since I actively like eat that kind of stuff up, I have a full understanding of the countries, because it's basically like a battle between 5 different nations in this game, all fighting for resources. So there's a lot to really kind of wrap your head around. Very Game of Thrones in that sense, right? But I feel like I've never been lost, and I think a lot of that is thanks to this active lore system that they have, which I really love. It's one of the best I've seen.
Yeah, the little bit that I did play of it, I did think that part was pretty cool. So
yeah.
I enjoyed that feature. It seems like a feature that could be utilized in future games very, very well.
Yes, I hope they keep it because I would say that's one of the highlights of the game for sure. And then thirdly and lastly, I would say the combat. I think that, the combat was created by the same person that does the Devil May Cry games, and it shows.
Yeah.
Like, this is a very action-oriented battle system, very different from, I would say, even Final Fantasy 15, whereas Final Fantasy 15 felt a little loose, and more Kingdom Hearts-ish, I would say. This feels way more direct, like Devil May Cry, where you really kind of you don't have to get good, but the game rewards you for getting good. Like to really explore the different abilities you obtain from the icons. And I think that's why at no point in the game so far have I felt the combat has gotten stale, is because the game does a good job of, like, every time you take down a big enemy and, like, absorb their power, you gain 3 to 4 new abilities that you can then utilize and combine with your other ones to like make new combos and stuff like that. So, like, as an example, one of Garuda's abilities in the game is called it's called like some kind of wheel gambit. I can't remember the full name of it, but you basically, like, juggle the enemy into the air and you follow up with them, and you're in the air and, like, doing like a whirlwind attack kind of thing. And there's another ability that you get later on in the game after you get Titan's powers called Upheaval, where you, like, create like a giant rock fist and then, like, fall to the ground and, like, create this big earth-shattering, like, impact. And what the game tells you, if you read into the abilities, is that Upheaval does more damage the higher you are in the air when you do the attack. And so it's one of those. Yeah, so it's like one of those things where, like, you could play around with it in its arcade mode. And I realized, like, oh, if I use Wheel's Gambit to jump really high in the air and then immediately follow with Upheaval, I'm going to do a massive amount of damage to enemies. And so the game really rewards you by, like, combining and utilizing its abilities differently each and every time. And every ability is different and is effective in its own way. It really is just kind of a mix and match of what works best for you. Like, there's abilities that are all around, counterattacking. There are abilities that are all about, like, precision dodging, just hack and slash abilities. It's all over the map. But the game does a very great job of kind of showing the effects of it. And it's kind of addicting, to Peter's point. I get excited every time I'm going into combat because I'm like, oh, it's always fun to fight. Which I'm kind of glad they mastered that in this game. Because if they didn't, I would probably have a much lower rating of it.
Yeah.
But, I would say that those are my 3 main things.
And then what about you, Peter? What do you find is, like, your top 3 features of the game?
Probably the boss fights. That's number 1.
Oh yeah.
That's what keeps me going. And they change every boss fight, so it's not the same mechanic. I mean, significantly, like, not even on the same plane of gameplay for every boss fight.
Yeah, you really have to kind of figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's pretty cool. Also, I think they did the difficulty in this game really well. I really like the rings that they allow you to use in the beginning.
Yep.
Tyler, from your suggestion, I've been using that dodge quick time action event ring, and I kind of just keep it on always because for me it makes the game really fun. I personally feel like every single heavy attack that might punish me and help me learn as a player or whatever, actually feels a little bit more fun for me going through the game in a more of a casual mode because I get to actually see all of those attacks and like in slow motion, and it kind of makes it look way cooler.
Yeah.
Because you get to see, like, especially the boss fights, like what they were actually trying to hit you with, and you're like, whoa, and it's still, you can still miss the quick time events. Some of them go by quite kind of fast or in rapid succession, and so like it still makes me feel like challenging enough to where I'm not feeling punished like Dark Souls, but I feel like I'm just this epic combatant. And the last thing I would say is probably the fact that like how they designed the characters in this game, like particularly your character. I really like who you are. I haven't felt that way since I played Crisis Core, like with or I guess technically like Final Fantasy VII Remake. Playing as Cloud was really fun, but I didn't really feel like Final Fantasy. Was it 15?
Yeah.
I felt like the character was cool, but I didn't feel like I felt that cool playing as them. Especially, I don't really remember too many of like the weapons you get, or if they even change based on new weapons that you get in that game. But in this game, when you get new weapons, like you look pretty decked out pretty quickly on in the game. Like you just look like a badass, and you feel like a badass.
Is it just the weapons that change? The outfits don't change?
Your
correct?
Outfits do change.
Oh, they do.
A little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah, tiny bits. Yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
Well, it has a significant change, like from one point to another in the story.
Yes, that is true.
But not often. Like it happens like once. So far, where I'm at, it happens like twice. And then of course you do have progression in the game. Like your character grows up. At multiple times in the story, and usually that only happens in these games like near the end.
Mm-hmm.
But it's fun playing as your character almost like in his peak state, like or in his prime, like for the majority of the story, like in fights and whatnot.
That's actually a great point, Peter, because like I didn't even think of it that way, because you're right. Like in this game you are basically playing as one character, Clive, and you play as him at 15. There's a time jump, and then he's 28. And then there's another time jump, and he's 32 or 33. So you're basically following him his entire young to adult life. And at first, the game very much makes it seem like this is going to be a typical revenge story of like, I'm going to, find the one who did this and kill them, like, just hell-bent on a revenge. And the game, I wouldn't say surprisingly, but refreshingly kind of closes that arc very quickly. It's like, oh, okay, this isn't about revenge anymore. This is about like making a better world and like not allowing the world to stay the course that it's on to self-destruction. Like Clive is like basically like taking on the burden to like make the world face itself and demands it to be better. And like there's actually a great line in it where like, he saves people in this moment and they hate him for it. And they're like, well, we didn't ask for your help. You're only making things worse for us. And, they leave, and one of your partners in the game is like really upset. And she's like, this is getting tiring. Like, why are we doing this when all we get is hate in return? And he's like, I don't do it for the gratitude. I do it because I'm making a better world for them in the future, for their kids, for their children. And, like his passion and his, I guess, drive to like it's just very refreshing. You don't see a lot of heroes like that are willing to become like kind of the world's villain to truly make a better world. And yeah, I would say Clive is a great protagonist. Like he's very well developed. It's a shame that you don't have a lot of other well developed characters outside of him, but right. he himself is a great character in the game. I like playing as him.
Yeah, it sounds like they they went all in on the main character, which isn't necessarily a terrible thing. There has definitely been games in the past where the opposite has happened, where
Yep.
Some people have dove very deep into not the main character, and I feel like that's a little bit less desired. So at least the main character has pretty good depth, and I think the fact that you do get to traverse through different age ranges with them only just kind of reinforces yourself to be able to kind of learn more about them. I mean, you can even, it's not like they have like deep stories by no means, but even when you play older games like the Fable series, where you do the same, you start as like a kid, you become a teenager, and then become an adult. Like something about when video games allow you to travel through age is just like fun. But I like that Final Fantasy kind of, at least this new one, did it where you get larger chunks of time with those different age ranges. Like 15, it wasn't until like literally the very end when they did just like a pretty weird age gap, and then
age jump.
By that time, you're kind of like, yeah, this game's boring. I don't really care about it.
But
yeah, but at least like with this, it's like, oh wow, his teenage years, you understand his background. His 20s, you get it, and now in his 30s, it's cool. It's definitely a good way to try and tackle age progression in a video game. So that sounds cool.
Yeah.
Is there like, what about the game? Because you guys both, are in the 7s as far as like your range or your overall score goes, and so obviously that's not a perfect 10. What could have made this game closer to a 10, if maybe around that like more 9-10 range? Like what would you, if maybe not necessarily the developers, but if whoever was in charge of this Final Fantasy 16 game was kind of on the podcast today and they asked you, like, hey, what could we have done to make this a 10 out of 10? What would you say to them?
I would say make a fully developed world. Like, you spend so much time on all of this lore and, different factions of kingdoms, and it's like, it's all well and good, and it's like, okay, like this stuff makes sense, but the actual world that you're playing in does not feel alive. There are so many towns that you go to that are just empty. Like there's literally nothing to do. There's maybe a shop that you can shop at, a key like quest character that you always go to, like Martha. But then the rest of the town is literally just kind of like a husk. There's NPCs and there's characters, but you don't really interact with them. They kind of just are constantly doing the same thing. It's one of those weird things where I almost compare it, and I really shouldn't compare it to Tears of the Kingdom, but just how Tears of the Kingdom, like almost to a molecular level, lets you interact with its world and like manipulate it how you want. And honestly, a lot of JRPGs do this now. It bothers me that I can walk into a town, see a wooden box, and can't smash it with my sword. Like I'll just swing my sword and it just bleeds through it, like it's not even there. And so it immediately breaks the immersion for me. I'm like, oh, okay, so I'm basically just on an empty plane right now with like.
I couldn't even figure out how to swing my sword in the town. I don't think I could do that.
No, you can't. But like I'm thinking about like when you're like in castle dungeon areas and you see stuff like that, and you're just like the game is very linear.
Yeah, it also has it has no reason to
go off
like
the beaten
really
path
and explore. Yeah, like any that you find of like a rare chest or just a rare item on the ground, any of those items can just be found following the main path and like killing other enemies. Like there is zero reason.
Skyrim.
I found 2 gil by walking 30 miles this way. It's that, and it's like, and I was talking with Peter about this the other day over the phone. They show so many events and story moments in cutscenes of like these beautiful looking cities, like huge cities that look amazing, and like castles, and I'm like, whoa, I can't wait to raid that castle, or to go like walk this town and like see what's going on over there. And it's like the game bypasses that, where it's just like, oh, like we'll show you this town in this cutscene and show you that it's a big place, but you're not actually going to interact in there. You're going to kind of skip it and go right to the dungeon. And it's just like, that just seems so weird. Like I don't like I get it, like you're trying to tell a very like linear story, but it just makes the game feel pace-wise very uneven. It doesn't make it feel like an RPG. If anything, I feel like I'm just playing an episode by episode, like Game of Thrones TV show in a sense. Like, and I don't come to Final Fantasy for that. You know, I want to be immersed and like travel towns and like talk with people and like honestly, if that was the only thing that they changed and made better, this would be one of my favorite games of the year. Like it's literally as simple as that. Just better gameplay of like exploration and world building. That's all I needed, and everything else like would have held itself up. Although I will say the music is kind of a letdown. There's like a few really great, beautiful tracks, but otherwise the music is.
Wow, that's surprising.
Yeah, it's really honestly kind of infuriating for me because for me, Final Fantasy is its music. Like it, like
for those who may not know, Max's wife walked down the aisle to a Final Fantasy song. So if it shows anything of what Final Fantasy music means to Max, it is a very big deal that this game kind of sucks in the soundtrack department. That's really sad to hear.
Yeah, it's just the soundtrack. You know, I think a lot of it is because my favorite tracks of Final Fantasy are from Nobuo Uematsu, who is a genius. But you know, there are some great tracks. I will not take that away from it. But for the most part, the tracks are very muted, very kind of in the background. You don't really notice it. And what's weird is that it doesn't seem like there are a lot of songs in the game because there are key moments in cutscenes or moments of you know, really emotional things are supposed to be happening, but the music they're playing really kind of does not give the impact it should to a scene, and it kind of takes you out of the emotion of it, which is very frustrating. But there is this one track called "Find the Flame," which is like this orchestral. Honestly, sounds like grumbling from Attack on Titan. Like it's just like it is awesome. Like I love this track, and like I looked up the lyrics to this song, and they're freaking awesome. Of "Find the Flame," because it's Clive's song, I guess. But any song that has orchestral and like people singing, I'm all for.
Yeah.
But
what about you, Peter? What would like I mean, let's say maybe it's the same as Max's, which Max, I think your camera.
Oh, I was turning on my light.
I think your camera too, Tyler.
Yeah, I can't have my camera on in Discord or else it won't appear on OBS for the stream. Yeah, so I mean, outside of what Max has said, I know you kind of feel the same way. Do you have like any other things that you would add, right? If like the developer was in here and asked you like, how could I make this game a 10? Anything else you would add into that?
No, I think it's really the same exact thing he said. Yeah. World building is like the biggest thing. And what's funny is that I can think of like Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles. I feel like I had more world building in that game, like a game that's really dear to me.
Music's incredible.
And music. Both of those topics, like those are two things that really make a Final Fantasy game. And that goes into like the design of the characters, the enemies, and the landscapes, and then the music around all that. And it just wasn't there. I mean, one of the largest places that opens up to you in the game is ugly. Like I want to say ugly because it's like a what would you call it? Like a wetland.
Yeah,
and it's
like a wetland area.
It's just flat.
Kind of near the beach, but it's just very foggy and moggy, and
it's flat. The enemies are generic in that area, and like half of them are just like little insects that are flying around that they hardly had any design put into them. And that's like one of the first largest areas that opens up to you, and it's just an odd choice. And I just to compare again to Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles, like just another Final Fantasy game I know really well. It's just like the landscapes in that game change constantly. You're like in a grassy area, and then you're in a deserty area. You're in like a medieval kingdom looking area. The biggest change that I've noticed, going from like in environment design, it goes from like this, landscape kingdom that you're sort of mainly walking around in to like you sort of explore like a cave system, and that was kind of a fun change of design. The cave was pretty well done and kind of made it was designed really well and had a couple of parts that like really opened up and made it feel like Dark Souls style, like you're like things are larger than life and you're like there's just this puny thing compared to this huge backdrop. And Max probably knows exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to that, but so that was cool. But like the majority of the game, like up until 50%, was just bland landscapes. And yeah, I don't remember a single song up until now. Nothing. I can't for the life of me think of what music played. Just probably some like action music. That's all I can remember.
Interesting. Yeah, it's it's interesting. Interesting the way that this Final Fantasy kind of turned out. I mean, not to say like sevens are bad scores by no means. I mean, 7, at least in my opinion, right? You have 5 being your average. 7 is well above in the above average range. 7 is pretty good nowadays, considering a lot of games seems like a lot of games tend to flop. I guess like the only thing that I can add myself into the mix of maybe if anybody's wondering why I'm not playing the game, I did give it a try. I got really bored. The cutscenes to me, unfortunately, were just too much. I don't know if their cutscene to combat ratio gets better, but I am always a proponent of when somebody tells me, hey, this thing gets better after 3 episodes, I'm like, well, I'm sorry, episode 1 is episode 1 for a reason. If I'm not getting hooked there, why do I want to keep waiting? And yeah, the cutscene to combat ratio for me was it's just bad. I am not a visual novel style video game player. Peter and Max, they definitely are, but I think they both definitely know that like a visual novel game is noted as a visual novel game. It's like when you go in there expecting that, right? That's what you're gonna get. With Final Fantasy, I expected really cool cutscenes for sure, but I did not expect to like play for 5 minutes and then watch stuff for another 20 and then play for like 10 minutes and then watch for like another 10. I was just kind of was like, well, if I wanted to watch a movie, I would have just watched a movie. So I ended up just getting kind of bored, which is probably like the only thing I can give into the Final Fantasy 16 discussion. I think if you look on YouTube, it ranges from anywhere from, I'd say, 17 to 20 hours worth of cutscene time in that game. And how long to beat, I feel like it's an okay estimate of how long games are. It seems like your average gamer is beating this game anywhere rapidly at 25 hours to casually around 35 to 40. So with that in mind, of that 35 to 40, it's kind of crazy that half the time it takes you to beat the game, sometimes more, is just because of cutscene. And I'm like, well, I mean, that's what they want to do. That's what they want to do. Unfortunately, that is not the kind of game I am interested in. So that is why I ended up just kind of dropping it myself. I also did have performance issues. I am someone who, I don't know if it's motion sickness. I got like this in VR as well, but I've always had problems with motion blur. It is the very first setting that I turn off in literally any video game that I play, and the motion blur for me was unfortunately pretty bad. I heard that it's either fixed now or there's options now, but for me it was already too late. I mean, I'm really glad that they fixed it, but it's by no means nowhere gonna bring me back into playing that game. Nor will I probably ever get back into that game. But sevens, around 7.5s, pretty good scores from the Calling All Nerd crew. is definitely a good game, and maybe take it for what you will. Try the game out if you want. Maybe if your friends got it, maybe you can borrow it from them. Just see what you think about it first. But yeah, so not too bad. Next up on the deck, though, thought we could maybe quickly chat about some Spider-Man news. Nothing too crazy. But just kind of, there is now a new storyline trailer. Story. How do they call it? They just say like storyline trailers nowadays. I get so confused with all these trailer names.
I know. It's a story trailer.
Trailer. Okay, so a story trailer just dropped yesterday, which was July 20th, 2023. Along with that, they have announced 2 additional products, I think might be the right way. There is obviously the base game of Spider-Man 2 for $69.99. You can get the Spider-Man 2 Collector's Edition box for $229. This box includes Marvel Spider-Man 2 full game digital voucher code, a steelbook display case, 19-inch collector edition statue featuring Spider-Man, Peter Parker, Spider-Man Miles Morales, and Venom. Includes the pre-order bonuses of the Arachnite suit for Peter, early unlock, Shadow Spider suit for Miles, early unlock, which means I am assuming that means you can get it in-game anyways. It just gives it to you right away. These do look cool, but it's kind of dumb that it's a pre-order bonus. Web Grabber early unlock plus 3 skill points, and you also get the digital deluxe content, which is 10 unique suits, 5 for each of Miles and Peter, additional photo mode items plus 2 skill points, and then you get the Peter Parker suits are an Aratinia suit by Raph Grassetti, a Punkalyptic suit designed by Gerard Morantz, tactical suit designed by Joel Mandish, which, let me just point out, this is actually kind of cool. They're telling you who designed these suits. Stone Monkey suit by Victoria Ying, 25th Century designed by Anthony Francisco. And then for Miles Morales, you get Encoded suit by Chris Anka, Biochemical suit by Gerard Morantz as well, Tokusatsu suit by Julia Blattman, Agamat, man, I am butchering these, suit designed by Anthony Francisco, and Red Spectre suit designed by Sweeney Boo. So the collector's edition box was announced. It looks pretty interesting. $229 is absolutely ridiculous. But hey, people really like getting them statues. And then last but not least, before we start talking about the trailer itself, they also announced PlayStation 5's, I believe, first themed console to be released. I think, right? I don't think they've had anything else yet. It's always just been white or the blacks. I don't think they've had a themed console.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if we have. The only other game that I can think of that might have gotten one was God of War, but I think
it was just the box.
I think it was just the box, yeah.
Yeah,
I think you're right.
So then PlayStation, who has been known to do this as well, I mean, Xbox does this as well, and I mean, everybody does it, Switch, doesn't matter, but PS5's first themed PlayStation 5 is also going to be released. I think it's only the big one with the disc, if I'm not mistaken. At least all the photos are showing the disc version, but maybe I'm wrong. But it's pretty cool. It features, obviously, it is a black case with like some red on it, and you see like some Venom tendrils. You can Google it. Looks really cool. And it comes with a Spider-Man Edition PS5 controller, which I'm really hoping they sell separately, because that does look really good, and I think worth the price tag for. It's a black controller with, again, red kind of on the side. It's got like white buttons for your X, square, triangle, and circle. It's got like a really cool Spider-Man logo right on the face on the touchpad there. It's a really cool controller. So the trailer kind of opened that up to the floor. Again, that game is coming out in October on the 20th. And yeah, I would say the trailer, if you have not watched it, it is really cool. It's shorter than the gameplay one because you don't really need to show too much. It's all just kind of content, I would say, is the best way to kind of summarize it. And what you finally get to see is we're pretty sure we at least see who Venom is actually being attached to. We know that Venom attaches to Peter at some point. I'm not sure still if it's full Venom or just like a part of Venom. Since Venom is a symbiotic being, he can detach and he doesn't have to be anywhere actually himself. He can spread his seed per se. So we don't know if full Venom is still attached to Peter or not, but we do get some insight into Mr. Osborn's son, who is, or not Mr. Osborn. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that their last name? Yeah.
Yeah, Norman Osborn.
Norman, yeah. So you get into, you see that it is Harry, Peter Parker's best friend, who is back from the dead, I would say, because no one has heard from him in forever. In the first game, if you played the first one, it's like it's assumed he's traveling, but then like literally until the end of the game, I actually thought he was dead. I was like, I don't think this guy's alive anymore. It feels like we're just like doing
right, because all you hear is like those audio logs.
It felt so morbid. I was like, this dude's dead. And then obviously at the end of the game, you see that he is just in a pod of water in his dad's mansion. But anyway, so he is in the trailer. It's very strongly hinted that it is Harry who is talking with Venom himself, and it looks like the main storyline of this game is typical Venom storyline. Venom, for those who may not know, is actually an alien from a different planet. Venom fears absolutely no one except for Carnage. Venom feeds off of brains. That is how Venom gets its power. It goes to different planets and feeds off everything there, every living life form. And it sounds like the way that Venom is getting kind of the one over on Harry is that he is going to help Harry cleanse the world and make it better. I would assume there's probably going to be some ties to maybe his mom as to why he is feeling sentimental about it. Maybe Venom kind of coaxes him and tricks him into thinking, oh, your mom died of this. Well, I can make that never happen. Let's clean this world up, right? So I'm assuming there may be something right there. We see Mary J again. Obviously, we see Miles. It sounds like there's some, Miles is looking up to Peter a lot. There could be some moments where Miles actually needs to save Peter, and Peter has a hard time asking for help, so there's probably going to be some of that going on. But overall, if you have not watched it, it is really good. It is a cool trailer. I think it's like 2.5, maybe 3 minutes long, and it's solid. What did you think about the trailer, Max?
I loved it. I mean, it's everything that I want from a Spider-Man game.
So cool.
I loved the first Spider-Man video game so much. Like I've replayed this game like at least 3 times. Just because I love Spider-Man. I love everything about his story, the character. I love what you were just saying about Harry kind of saying at the beginning of the trailer, let's save this world. Like, because and I think one of the reasons why in the world of Spider-Man, both the heroes and villains are very genius level individuals. Like pretty much everyone that you deal with in the world, and I say the world of Spider-Man because I feel like Spider-Man is very much like Batman, where it's like he's so big he almost has a universe in and of itself. In terms of popularity and the number of villains that he has. Spider-Man is a very filled world of tragic villains, like people that just had one really bad day and went the wrong way. And it always tends to have something to do with animals too.
It really does.
But
That's funny. Scorpion, vulture, it really does.
Vulture, they're all animal, except for Venom. But he's an alien, so I'll count that. But it's one of those things where I love what you're saying about how Harry is already in this mindset of, I lost my mom to this disease. I have the disease. I want to cure this for the world. Like, I want to do this. And they kind of plant the seeds of that in the first game because there's all of these environment quests that you do, that Harry has kind of created these things that really help keep the environment. Thank you. Yeah, the environment of Manhattan clean.
Yeah, like the physical environment, not like game
physical
environment.
Physical environment.
Air quality, water quality, like the actual environment.
Yeah, exactly. He seems a lot more humanitarian than Norman.
Yeah.
Like he's very much like, I want to make the world a better place. And to
Which
your point,
did stem from his mom, I think, for
yeah,
most part, because I think he mentions his mom a lot in those.
Yeah, and in the trailer, it does show that Harry is back. I think there's a very quick scene where it looks like he's like kind of walking on a crutch. Like you can tell he's very weak physically. Not in the best of health still. He's recovering. And I think Venom could be a very seductive. Seductive is kind of a weird word, but it's
he has a silver tongue.
He has a silver tongue. Yeah, he can say like take me on. You will get the power you need to save the world. And that's why at the end of the trailer, when it's Venom's voice in the third person saying, "We will."
Oh man. We
will cleanse the world. I was like, oh god, here we go.
Dude, how good is that Venom voice actor?
It's so good.
Oh my word!
I think the thing I think the thing I'm most excited for is I think this is the first time I'm finally going to get the Venom game I've always wanted.
Yeah.
Like the Venom story in a video game I've always wanted. Like I have no doubt they'll deliver it. I think that it just shows the tragic story, right? Of like, we're going to try and have to save Harry.
Yeah.
But who knows? They could be kind of throwing us for a loop, and like maybe it's not Harry. Maybe they're just trying to kind of goes down the weird path. I have no doubt at some point that Miles and Peter are going to clash. They're going to fight.
Sure. They have strongly, I feel like, hinted at that a lot, and not even just the gameplay trailer too. Just really felt that.
Well, and the gameplay trailer where it's like when Peter has the symbiote consuming his suit, like he becomes angrier and he bemes more violent and aggressive.
You know what I just thought about? Because doesn't like Venom has a weakness, right? Like I know in the original first three, like the third Spider-Man movie, it was like sound that like got him. He's very sensitive to sound.
He's sensitive to sound, yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if like Miles and Peter like fight each other, but like because you know how Miles has like special powers, like maybe he uses like something. Maybe with like electricity to like trigger sound to try to like get the symbiote out of Peter, and like that's gonna be their fight.
Yeah,
I feel like Miles is gonna save Peter for sure.
Yeah, that clash is gonna be what frees Peter from the symbiote, and then the symbiote will attach to Harry most likely or something like that. But I'm honestly. And that's just like the core story, right? I'm excited for Kraven as the B villain. Like I'm excited for the Lizard. Every villain there's going to be a few villains in this game, just like there were in the first. And I think we're going to get a lot of cool twists. You had mentioned as we were chatting earlier that wouldn't it be crazy if Mary Jane was Carnage or she got Carnage thing? And as awful as I don't want that to happen, that would be a crazy twist to lead us into the third game. Because for me, it's like this is inevitable that in the third game we are going to have Green Goblin, and we're going to have it's got to be. We're going to have Green Goblin and we're going to have Carnage, because there is that part of me that is 80% sure that Harry is most likely going to die. Whether self-sacrificing to like stop Venom, within himself, or I don't see this ending well for Harry. And this, Spider-Man universe, they don't pull punches when characters die.
No, when the first game, the first game came out like 2018, I think, right? I'm just gonna say it.
2017, 2018.
All right, well, fair game now. I'm saying it. So obviously his grandma passes away in the first one, and oh my gosh, does it pull at the heartstrings? It is.
Dude, I teared up. I was like, "This is."
I think Peter, you came in the living room and watched it with me, right? Because I think you were like working, and then like after work, I was like, "Oh, I'm beating the game right now," and you're like, "Oh, cool." We just like sat like watched it. It was so crazy.
It's so good when you can like almost quote a scene word for word, like when he
wanted to give that medicine to her so bad and just knew he shouldn't.
and that's why he's the best. Like, is he always
Spider-Man's my favorite Marvel superhero. He always has been. I think.
And that's the thing. Cool. Like Peter always makes the right choice, no matter how detrimental it is to his personal life.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like Peter is always like living like beneath his means in a way. He
always lives in like a crummy apartment.
Right. Like he's always sacrificing his well-being for others. And I think that Miles, I'm very excited because I know Miles is not going to let him fall.
Yeah, he cares about him way too much.
And this is very much like how the first game's sub quote was "be greater." In this game, it's "be greater together."
That's cool.
And so it's Miles and Peter on the cover. This is very much a game of they have to lift each other up. They have to both be together to be able to beat Venom, because Peter can't do it alone.
Oh man, and I told Max and Peter earlier, since I did not play Final Fantasy so far, still Tears of the Kingdom is my game of the year. There is still Baldur's Gate 3, Starfield, and Spider-Man around to change that. And I was telling the both of them, if this game reduces or gets rid of or, just reinvents it in a better way of all those like menial, just like tasks that you had to do. I mean, this game could easily become my game of the year. It's just like, if they have that stuff again, it's going to be like kind of how you guys feel with like Final Fantasy, like your equivalent of like the world building that you wish you had. I feel like is going to be my equivalent of, you guys made this way too repetitive and annoying. I can't give you guys a perfect score. So hopefully they kind of got rid of that. Because I mean, I love me some collectibles. I do. But I don't think you need to do so many like collectible style things. Like I shouldn't have to refight the same thing like 80 times just to get these points, and like just make like fun hidden objects like around the cities and just let that be like your collectible type of deal. Don't do these repetitive but yeah, it should be I hope it gets better. But Peter, did you watch the trailer or anything? Have anything to put into?
Nope.
Okay, cool. No worries. But yeah, so Spider-Man comes out October. Hopefully we will definitely do something around that. More than likely we will, because I think that game's going to be really great. And I keep forgetting that it's coming out this year, so I know. It's always fun to remember that. Well, let's take a little aside from the video game realm. If you are listening to this podcast in the future, this probably has not as much relevance to you because it's a kind of timely thing, but you could still watch these movies in the future. But this weekend in particular is kind of a crazy weekend in the movie scene. Last week we had Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1 come out, which I didn't realize this was a Part 1. Right now it's sitting at an 8.1 on IMDb and a 99% on Rotten Tomatoes. Tom Cruise is absolutely killing it these past couple of years. And then today, 2 movies came out, which if you are seeing the title of our podcast, you already know what those are. We got Barbie, the 2023 film featuring Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling, which, yes, it is a movie about Barbie. And then Oppenheimer, which is really funny. This is a Christopher Nolan film, but that is where Barbenheimer has been coming around. It is a meme as of today where people are talking about the mashup of Barbie and Oppenheimer. Oh, it's so funny. And so Oppenheimer is kind of a biographical thriller film talking about the atomic bomb, the creation of that, and I think more in particular the post effects of making that, creating that atomic bomb and what it's kind of meant for the world. So it's got the cast in this one: Emily Blunt, Matt Damon, Robert Downey. I always say this guy's name. Is it Cillian Murphy? I don't know how you say his first name.
Yeah, it's
because it's a C.
It's Irish or something, but like it's Cillian.
Cillian, yeah.
Cillian, yeah.
Yeah, it features him as like the main, but yeah, like Emily Blunt, Robert Downey, Matt Damon, There's probably a ton more. This is kind of all I can think of at the top of my head.
Josh Peck.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, the cast is crazy, and it's a Christopher Nolan film. So those are the 3 films that you can kind of watch this weekend. If I had to rate the order of what I would want to see these, first being like I want to see this first, right? It'd probably be Oppenheimer to Mission Impossible to Barbie. I think it's my order. Peter, of these 3 films, kind of what are you most excited about? What would be kind of your order of what you would want to watch?
I had no idea about the Oppenheimer thing, and as soon as you said Christopher Nolan, I'm like, isn't that Interstellar? I'm like, so 100% Oppenheimer, and it looks like it did really well.
The trailer's phenomenal. I think I've seen it in
I am
theaters twice so
excited
far.
now. You've seen it?
No, sorry. I've seen the trailer in theaters,
okay.
And it's
yeah. A lot of people are
only
saying
out
it's
in
like,
theaters right now.
It came out today.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Barbie came out today.
And Barbie came out today.
I think it's going to be very heavy.
Oh yeah, very haunting. Like this is not going to be a happy.
And then definitely Mission Impossible second. I mean, how could you not want to see Tom Cruise after Top Gun?
Yeah.
Maverick, my God, that's still probably like one of the best movies I've seen in the last maybe 10 years.
Easily.
I
love it, man. I want to go watch it right now.
Yeah.
I don't even remember the third one. Was it Barbie?
Hey, don't sleep on Barbie, bro. All I'm saying is right now it's got a 90% on Rotten Tomatoes with an 89% Rotten audience score and a 7.7 on IMDb, which it's just the first day. But yeah, apparently it is doing pretty decent. It says that Barbie lands up somewhere with a 150 million plus opening. And then Oppenheimer is at 75 right now. Now this was 2 hours ago, so I mean, give it some time. It's also an hour longer, so less time.
3 hours long, dude.
Yeah. What about you, Max? Is your order kind of the same?
No, actually. So I've never seen a Mission Impossible movie.
Okay.
So I want to watch them at some point. So that would probably be my last one, just because I don't want to go into it without seeing the previous ones.
I got you.
So I would definitely, I'm actually looking to seeing Oppenheimer tomorrow.
Cool.
And then Barbie after that, which I actually watched the trailer for Barbie with Ruthie, and it looks fun as heck. Like it looks really funny. Even though I've never played with Barbies, or even Julia ever played with Barbies growing up. Like Barbie is so iconic that I know what it looks like. I know what the world of Barbie Land looks like as the toys, you know?
Yeah.
And the fact that it's, at least from the trailer, it very much seems like it's making fun of the stereotypes of Barbie, of like, oh, you need to look like this as a woman. Like like this very much looks like almost like an elf kind of story, in the sense where it's like it's Barbie leaving Barbie Land, coming to the real world.
She loses. She has flat feet.
Yeah, and realizes that like, oh, like I'm not setting the best example for women all over the world. And like, I love that Ryan Gosling's character of Ken very much seems like he's trying to get out of Barbie's shadow, and he's like, it's always Barbie and Ken. It's never just Ken. And just him finding some sort of like autonomy for himself. I kind of love the idea that that's his character arc. It just looks hilarious. And Greta Gerwig, the director of the movie, I think she's phenomenal. She's directed 2 movies before this one, Lady Bird and Little Women, both of which are phenomenal movies. Little Women is one of my favorite movies in the last few years as well. I know it's a movie that's been made over and over again over the past like 50 plus years, but this latest version is my favorite. And so the fact that she's helming this movie, it looks beautiful. It looks really well made production wise. I want to see both of them. I could probably wait to see Barbie until it's out of theaters, but if I had to choose between 2, you can never go wrong with a Christopher Nolan movie.
It's fun that there's a little Easter egg too in Google. If you do Google the Barbie movie, like pink sparkles go all around your screen and everything turns pink.
I'm looking that up right now. That's hilarious.
Fun little Easter egg that's going on. And its cast is also really good, right? Like the Barbie movie, it's got Ryan Gosling, it's got Margot Robbie, Michael Cera, Will Ferrell's in this thing. Apparently Anne Hathaway makes an appearance. John Cena somehow's in this. There's it's a ton. There is a lot. Kate McKinnon, she's pretty funny. America Ferrera, she's really good. So yeah, it's cool. It's a really big cast in all these films that are out right now. So yeah, if you're into the film industry, this is a really good week to go out and just try to see some movies. I definitely I haven't seen all the Mission Impossibles as well. I think this is maybe like the 6th or 7th one. I always forget. I do know 7. I know it's been a long time since like the last one, right? Maybe 5-6 years.
5 years, I think, since Fallout. Henry Cavill's in that one. He was apparently really great in it. I do know that this is like you said, part 1 and part 2. This is the final Mission Impossible movie. So Mission Impossible 8 or part 2 will be the final movie.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how old Tom Cruise is, but you got to stop sprinting.
They gotta stop making him look very young in these films. Eventually,
you can only do so much, dude.
You gotta just stop. Yeah. It looks like part 2 is actually scheduled. At least right now, it could change. But part 2 is scheduled for June 28th of next year. So at least the wait for part 2 isn't bad. It seems that it is in the filming stage right now. And the fun thing is, Christopher McQuarrie is the one who directed it. He also directed the last 2, so Fallout and Rogue Nation, which obviously seems to be going really, really well for it. So that's nice that he is still kind of attached to all this. J.J. Abrams has still been a producer and everything, as well as Tom Cruise. But so that's cool. I'm glad that like the same director has kind of been heading these last couple ones. Last thing I guess I would say on this is kind of our friend Saturn. He has seen every Mission Impossible, and when he we asked him what he thought about it, and he actually did say that it is his favorite Mission Impossible yet. So I feel like that's pretty high praise for a movie on its 7th iteration or 6th iteration would be labeled as someone's best. That's pretty cool.
Impressive. I think it's a testament to like, say what you will about Tom Cruise. I know a lot of people like him. I personally don't like him as a person. But I can't. The man has shown that he has a love for film probably higher than a lot of people in Hollywood. This is a man who is dedicated to his craft, and it shows. Maverick would not have been as good as it was without him driving a lot of it and saying we need practical jet effects, these things. We have to do these things. It's the same with the Mission Impossible movies. To this day, he still does all of his own stunts.
Yep.
And I think that's why I do want to see them. Is because I want to see wow, how did they keep moving forward as he's aged. The man makes good movies.
He does. He really does. And they do well on reviews and in theaters.
Yeah, they do. So I am very impressed.
All right. Well, we have time for our last topic of the night, which is an indie game that I did not think I was going to dive into as much as I have. Peter, why don't you tell our loving audience a little bit about Dave the Diver? If you can give us maybe your quick summary. What is Dave the Diver? Where can you play it at? And why is it one of the best indie games so far this year?
What is Dave the Diver? What isn't Dave the Diver? Are you kidding me?
It's the better
Dave the Diver is everything. It's everything. It literally has every freaking thing in it that you can think of. It's an indie game. It's like Pixel. You look at it and you're like, this isn't anything. And then you play it and it's like, this has everything.
Where can you play it on?
Steam.
Yep. Yeah, it's a PC game, PC only. Technically Steam Deck, but who gets in those technicalities? So what do you do in Dave in Dave the Diver? What are some of these things?
1 minute you're fishing, another minute you're cooking, another minute you're like playing a freaking side scroller, and like then you're playing like an RPG, and then you're playing like watching a cutscene of like more cutscenes that are more interesting and more emotional than like the cutscenes in Final Fantasy. For a pixel game, it's like pixelated cutscenes, every single one of them, but they're animated like a movie.
It's kind of crazy. There's some deep emotion in some of these cutscenes with the chef.
Man, even like, and then like it's ridiculous. It is a wild time. It has some of the best humor in a video game I've ever seen. It really doesn't come off cringy at all. It sort of comes off like it takes itself very unserious, and it knows that it's not trying to be funny. It's just it knows its audience. It knows the gamers who are playing this game, and you can just identify with so many parts of the game. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, so Dave the Diver, if you could not tell, is a really good game. Yeah, you do play as Dave, who is the diver. You are a man on a mission to try to help your friend kind of create a sushi shop. So the main core of the game is you go underwater, you explore underwater, and you catch fish, and there is a sushi shop mini game involved. But there's, like Peter said, there really is just like a ton of content. The beginning of the game, they just tack on so many other like little mini games onto it. You have mini games to grow rice, mini games to breed fish, mini games for like the actual like sushi part, which I would say the main two things are the sushi and like the diving under the water and like exploring the depths and whatnot. And then there's like mer people, there's horse racing, there's helping some of the other animals under the sea, and there are boss fights. There's just fights with other, like other fish who are just more aggressive, like sharks and whatnot, right? There's nighttime fishing. There's daytime fishing. You get a cell phone that allows you to like people's posts on Instagram, essentially. You got a music player. You can call people. You can get funny spam emails in your email inbox on your. I mean, there really is. Like, I have not seen an indie game like this just consistently add more content of things to do. Some of it can be a little overwhelming because you're like, holy guacamole, there's like so much I got to do. But once you kind of figure out what you actually like, there's things you got to do, and then there's just things that like passively will happen. They have a really good blend between the like, hey, just like set it and forget it, and like this is like something you could do because it's like more fun. There's like a management mini game to like manage your staff in there, and apparently there's a storyline. Peter, out of the three of us, is the only one who has beaten the game. So there is a storyline. You can technically beat the game, though I wouldn't really. I don't know. Peter said it was cool and all, right? You were telling me like, hey, you liked it, but really the game itself is what's fun, not necessarily the storyline. Like just playing Dave the Diver is its strong suit.
I really want to play this game. I
think you'd have really fun. And for people listening in, right? So Metacritic has given it an 89. IGN gave it a 9 out of 10. PC Gamer gave it a 91. Open Critic gave it an 89, whatever the heck that is. And on Steam, it is a 10 out of 10. It has 39,758 reviews, which I know some people like review bomb and spam and all that kind of crap, but it does have an overwhelmingly positive score on Steam as of right now. Do I think this game is going to hit console one day? 100% this game is going to hit console one day. There is no shot this game cannot hit console. It is just crushing it. It's really cool.
The way that you two are explaining it to me, it sounds like Yakuza. in the sense of like Yakuza is basically
yeah. Yeah, my
things.
gosh, you're so right. That
It
is totally how this is like.
And the
Like,
humor's kind of similar too, I
Yeah.
think.
yeah, it just seems very like slice of life. You're doing so many different like things in the midst of a overarching narrative.
Yes.
It's one of the reasons I love the Yakuza games so much is because like the mini games are so much freaking fun, and like this sounds right up my alley. Like in terms of gameplay, this sounds like something I would absolutely enjoy and be in like my top 10 for the year.
Yeah,
So
it
Just
is,
when you
it's
think
very
you're
addictive.
done with the game, not as a spoiler, but it tacks on like another extremely complicated mechanic. Like, so you could continue the game. It's not like it just stops when you beat it.
right.
So I know some people care about that.
No, I
but
love that
yeah,
kind of
it's
stuff.
a game you can continue playing
And it's only 20
after
bucks.
you beat it.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And it's been on sale a ton. Like I think it's on sale again this weekend for like 18. Like it's just it's for what you get is absolutely incredible. The only issue that I had with it was its saving mechanic. You get 3 auto saves and then 1 save slot. And the save slot though, like sometime the game can kind of get a little unfortunate with its like time basis. So if you like if you can only do the sushi shop during the nighttime and you can only fish during the day, or you can fish during one part of the night. It's kind of hard to explain, but essentially though, sometimes the storyline can time lock you, and like if you had like, oh, I really wanted to do this special event at night and you didn't realize it, you like go through this story mode thing, and the next thing you know, it's like, oh, the night's over with, you can't do the special event. I'm like, oh, well, that kind of sucks. And then like, yeah, so there's like some little things here and there that's like a little frustrating with the game. But I mean, I'm still sitting at a solid like 9.5 out of 10 for this game.
The way that you just said that, is it almost like Persona in a way where it's like you have to like kind of map out your schedule if you want to see everything? Or
Not necessarily see everything, because like the game doesn't have like, it's not a Harvest Moon where like you're gonna die at the very end eventually, but like, so you don't have like a numbered amount of days to like be able to see everything. It's just more of like a little frustration of like, oh man, I like kind of mapped out like, I got all these fish tonight. I was gonna like do like a really good like tuna sushi night thing here, but like now my plan is kind of ruined because I didn't realize this storyline was gonna take longer. So it's just like a little annoyances of like that. But outside of that, really for me, this game is like a solid 9.5 out of 10. So what is your score on it, Peach?
Yeah, I would say 9.5.
Yeah, it's good. It's really good.
And the save feature definitely was the only thing that knocked off the last 0.5 points.
Yeah.
This sounds like a great Switch game to me that I would play.
Yeah. If it gets on the Switch, get it right away. It's gonna be fun.
Oh, I can't wait. I cannot wait.
Well, very cool. I think that is all the topics that we had for the night. We usually finish off with a recommend. Did anybody think of any recommendations by chance, Max, Peter?
Oh yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I got a recommendation.
Okay, cool. Well, you guys can go first because I completely forgot. So we'll start with Max. I'm assuming, is everybody just kind of, you guys are playing Final Fantasy as far as like outside of maybe any like, I know Peter, you and I kind of play our like online games, but aside from like that world, has it kind of just been Final Fantasy and like a little bit of Dave for you, Peter? Has you guys been playing anything else?
My recommendation.
Okay.
Is to no, I guess it hasn't been anything else.
I just wanted to make sure because we always talk about the games that we're playing. I didn't want to cut that part out. That was why. I just wanted to make sure.
Okay.
That's all we've been playing. Has it been kind of Final Fantasy and like Dave the Diver for the most part?
Yeah.
I've also been playing Octopath Traveler 2, just because
sweet.
This has been a crazy year of JRPGs, which is I'm in heaven in that sense. It's great. I haven't gotten too into it because I want to finish Final Fantasy 16 first before I fully dive into it.
Yeah.
But I fell off of the first Octopath Traveler pretty early just because it started getting really repetitive. And all the reviews I read about Octopath Traveler 2 were saying it has vastly improved that aspect of it. And the storylines of the 8 heroes is way better than the first game. So I was like, okay, I'm going to give the second one a shot. And so far, it is not disappointed. Cool. It's really, really good.
That's really good to hear. Sweet.
Yeah. I will say this. I mean, it's not recent. I mean, it was only just a little bit ago. But I did pick up Darkest Dungeon.
Ooh,
so nice. That was an experience that I missed out on when it first came out. And then the second game came out recently. So I guess that's a little relevant in a sense.
Did you play the second one too?
I haven't, but I do know that it got really good reviews.
Nice.
And yeah.
Yeah, I'm not playing anything. I have not been playing jack for a while now. I've been playing some Fortnite and whatnot, but I'm kind of just waiting for August 3rd is when Baldur's Gate 3 drops. So
then
at the moment,
you. Still Starfield.
Yeah, at the moment, I don't really care about video games right now. I've just been watching TV shows and playing board games. So that has been my life. But yeah, okay. So now, what are some recommendations for our audience? Peter, what would you recommend this week?
I would recommend to check out Resident Evil 4 remake if you haven't already checked it out. It was probably one of the best first games I played this year.
Yeah.
It was kind of like that and Harry Potter are the two that I remember, and Resident Evil made a much larger impact. It was like all the way through it had me hooked. Sort of like how Resident Evil 2 remake did. Resident Evil 3 remake was good, and I liked that a lot, but 4 really gave me that sense of wow, I'm this is just packed with action and excitement the whole way through, and it had a lot more content than the third one did. So yeah.
Love that. I need to play that game.
Feel like it was easy to forget about it, but with all the other stuff being announced, but
just because it was easy to forget about does not make it bad.
Exactly.
Not at all.
What about for you, Max? What would you recommend to our audience?
Oh man, I'm gonna recommend a TV show. I honestly can't remember if I recommended this show last time we did our podcast, and even if I did, I don't really care. It's The Bear.
Yep.
The Bear season 2 came out a few weeks ago now. Ruthie and I binged it in a week. I have. It has been a long time since I have seen a show that has just fired on all cylinders like this. This show has so much freaking heart and so much just really makes you root for all of the characters in this show. It's a slice of life cooking show. It's about this character who is kind of taken over his brother's restaurant, and season 2 just came out where they're now in the renovation stage of the restaurant and all of the stressful things that can go on in that kind of thing. And it's just a very great look at Chicago restaurant life. What is it like owning a restaurant? What is it like dealing with your personal demons that you're facing day in and out in the midst of running a restaurant? And I can't praise this show enough. It's phenomenal storytelling. The writing is impeccable. there are moments in the show where you're watching a scene and it doesn't feel scripted. You feel like you're watching a true real life scenario in front of you. That's how good the writing is. And, I really just kind of recommend it to anyone I ever speak to. Like it's one of those things where in terms of language, it is very heavy, but it's one of those things where it works for the place you're in, the environment you're in, the characters you're with. And I can't praise the show enough. I don't want to give too much away about what it does, how it impacts you. I highly recommend it to anyone listening, and to the both of you if you haven't watched it yet. It's a phenomenal story. It is probably the best show I've seen in 3 years, maybe.
Dang. That's awesome.
It's just incredible.
That's so cool. Yeah, I think you did mention it last time too, or at least maybe the time before, which, I mean, hey, that's not a bad thing. If you recommend something more than one time, I mean, really, it just kind of shows just like how awesome it is. Ain't no shame in that, for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So for me, we have a really good variety this week. That's really nice. Mine is a board game. Well, technically it is a card game. It is the Marvel Champions card game. It is a really fun card game. It features, there are, I don't know, like a couple, there's like one core game, and then there is 6, campaign expansions, and then there is 30 additional hero packs that you can also buy separately. But essentially, you are, in the core set, you get 4 heroes that you get to play as: Spider-Man, Iron Man, Captain Marvel, Hulk, Black Panther. So there's 5, and Black Panther. And you fight different villains. Like right now, Julie and I are still just trying to beat Rhino because he is really hard, and for us the game is kind of hard. But you play as your heroes and you take on the villains. And it is a card game. It is not a deck builder like DC Deck Builder. You have a predefined 50 card deck. But the really cool thing about this one that I do like is, if you want to get someone else, like Gambit, for example, has his own deck that you can buy. And it comes with, your stand. I think it's 40 cards maybe in a deck. It comes with a pre-made 40 card deck, which is a really good place to start. But you can customize it just like you did back in the day when you played, Pokemon, or when you played Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Magic the Gathering. This is a card game in that sense where you can edit your deck and make it the way that you want to make it, which I think is really cool. The mechanics of it are really fun. And it is a board game that Julie and I have really enjoyed. We went to a board game, I don't know what it would be called. I don't want to call it a bar because it wasn't a full-on bar, but it had drinks and stuff. But it was a comic book store. It had figures and board games, and you could go there and play games for free. We brought our Dice Throne game and we were playing it. And there was a table next to us that was playing this Marvel Champions. And when me and Julie see superhero in card games, our ears perked up. And sure enough, we bought it on sale on Prime Day. And it is an incredible, incredible card game. So if you're into board games and whatnot, and you like Marvel characters, Marvel Champions, the board game, is definitely for you. You can play it solo. And if you got friends, you can play up to 4 people. So pretty cool.
Nice. I like that.
Oh, yeah.
I think that concludes it. Pretty solid episode. I tell you, Max, he always says, maybe we won't have enough content for today's podcast. And I'm always like, you never know, man. It'll be fine. And sure enough, every time we hit an hour and a half, never fails. I love it. It is a tradition right now for Max to always say, this might be a short one today. it always
and then it's guaranteed to be 2 hours long.
It is the best. I absolutely love it. But, well, thank you all for listening. It was a pretty solid podcast in my opinion. A lot of cool stuff that is happening. Fun. I think this was our first kind of there's a lot of cool movies. We haven't had a podcast yet where there's been a lot of movie talk, so that's kind of cool. I enjoyed that.
Yeah,
really glad to see that the film industry is doing well right now.
Yeah, might be the best it'll be for a while.
Yeah.
Writing and actor strike is over. We'll see.
Yeah, very true. And as always, appreciate Peter hopping in. We always like when he gets to join us. He's definitely becoming a good, solid honorary member of the podcast team. And before I continue to just ramble on even more, as always, you can find us on all of your favorite podcasting websites, whether it be on Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon, Simplecast, and even a couple more that I forget. Look up your favorite podcast site. I bet we're there. And if we're not, let us know, because we'll probably be able to get there. You can find us always Calling All Nerds. Again, Calling All Nerds is the overarching, we'll just call it company of us, right? And this is the Nerd Alert podcast, brought to you by the Calling All Nerds. We are the Calling All Nerds crew. You can find us on socials. We won't ever post on there because none of us care about social media. But you will find us on YouTube, where you can watch us live and get some insights before we do the stream. We'd like to chit-chat a little bit if you're interested in that. That is always cool to jump in on that. So you can listen to our podcast also post on YouTube and on your favorite podcast site, wherever you would like to. And with that, I think we conclude episode 23 of the Nerd Alert podcast. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and we shall see you all again next time.
Peace.
Peace.